Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to my channel. If you're just strolling by, or if you're grading this right now, hello. So today I'm going to be talking about the joints of the body and some examples of what you can do with those joints. This is for my BIOS 1300 lab project taking place of exam 2 and 3, and I believe this is in lab 6. Just a question about the joints and some examples of each. So starting off, I have a Halloween decoration that I found in my basement. Not the best anatomically correct figure, but I'm just working with what I have, so just come along with me on this journey. So we're starting off with the faucet joints of the vertebral column. So these are going to be within each vertebrae, where your superior articular process and your inferior articular process are going to meet. You have your cervical faucet joints, your thoracic faucet joints, your lumbar faucet joints, and your lumbosacral faucet joint down here. Oh. And then within each vertebrae as well, you also have intervertebral discs that are going to be that joint, the intervertebral joint between each vertebrae. So you can even perform functions with your cervical vertebrae, such as rotation of that. You can flex your cervical intervertebral joint as well as extend, and you can even do lateral flexion. So those are some options with those and some examples. Moving on to go about up here to the skull, we have a temporomandibular joint, and that's just going to be where your mandible meets your temporal part of your skull. And this is going to help with a lot of things throughout the day that we don't really realize, of just talking, breathing, chewing. It's like one of the most used joints in the body. So, all right, moving on, we have your scapulothoracic joint, and that's just going to be where your scapula meets your thoracic cavity, your ribs. It's just going to literally lay right on top of those ribs, and that's going to help with the actions of elevation, just bringing your shoulders up, and depression, just dropping them down, as well as protraction, so extending out and then retracting, extending back. So there's some actions of that joint. Next we have the sacroiliac joint, also known as the SI joint. So that's just going to be where your sacrum is articulating with your iliac portion of your pelvis bone. So it's going to be right here, and then moving down, we have the pubic symphysis, which is just going to be where those two pubic tubercles meet to form this joint in the middle. And moving back up to the arm here, we have your glenohumeral joint, or also known as your shoulder joint. And this is going to be where a lot of actions take place. Some things that I think stick out to me, movement-wise and example-wise, is just going to be the movements of abduction, taking your arm away from your body, and adduction, adding your arm to your body. So that's from your glenohumeral joint. You can also do internal rotation, which would literally just be turning your arm in towards your body, and then external rotation, turning your arm away from your body. So there's some actions of the glenohumeral joint. Okay. Moving down here, we're coming to the shoulder joint. The shoulder joint has 3 basic joints that tag along with that. You're going to have your humeral ulnar joint, your humoradial joint, which is just going to be articulating with your radius. Can't really see it here, but it does. And your humoradial. And then you're also going to have your radial ulnar joint. So that's going to be where your radius is articulating with your ulnar. And that's going to be a distal joint. So your distal radial ulnar and your proximal radial ulnar, which is going to be closest to your body, and then your distal radial ulnar, which is going to be down here towards the wrist. So those are those joints. Your radial ulnar joint can perform the action of supination, which is having your hands up like this. I like to think about carrying soup. And then your pronation, which is just turning your arm downward like that in that action. So moving on down here, we have your radiocarpal joint, which is just going to be where your radius is articulating with your carpal bones, and you can perform the action of flexion or extension like that. And then your metacarpal phalangeal, or start with your metacarpal phalangeal are right here. So that's where your metacarpals are meeting with your phalangeal, and that's just going to be performing the actions of either flexion or extension. And then you also have other joints in there, such as your distal phalangeal, and then your proximal phalangeal, interphalangeal, distal interphalangeal, and proximal interphalangeal joints. So that is going to be on that. And you also have your metacarpal phalangeal. That's what I couldn't remember. And that is just going to be right here. Your metacarpals articulate with your carpal bones right here. And you can perform the action of abducting your fingers away from each other, or adducting. So adducting is bringing them to, and abducting is taking them away. You can also take the same joints I talked about earlier, your interphalangeal joints, which are just going to be through 2 through 5, and you can flex the interphalangeal joints like that. Can't really extend that much because you're really just extending from your metacarpal bones right here. So those are those. That really goes for the foot too, but I'll get back to that. So I think we skipped over the hip bone, or did we? Yeah, I think. Yeah, we did. We definitely skipped over the hip bone. Okay, the hip bone is where the femur articulates with the acetabulum. So this is going to be performing many functions, just as the shoulder joint. So you're going to have abduction, taking it away from your body. Adduction is bringing it towards your body. You can also have internal rotation, which is where you literally just take it and you cross it over your body like this. You can also have extension of this hip bone, such as taking your leg back like this, and flexion, which is just bringing it forward like that. So those are some actions of the hip joint. Yep. And then I forgot to mention also, in your vertebral column, you can flex and extend it, such as flexing like this and extending like this. So flexing and extension have very common movements without each joint. So, going back to hip joint again, you can also have internal rotation, which would just be internal, like in rotating your foot inward kind of, but that's actually internally rotating your hip joint, as well as externally rotating is some more functions that you can do. So moving on to the knee joint, where the tibia articulates with the femur, and that is just going to be a knee joint. You can flex this knee joint as well as just extend, which is basically just standing straight, but it's extension. You also have your patellar, or where your patella articulates with your femur. And then moving down, we have the talocurl joint, so where your tibia articulates with your talus. This is going to perform the action of dorsiflexion, which would just be flexing your foot back like this, and then plantar flexion, which would just be flexing down. So those are those joints. And so within, like I said, the feet have very similar joints as the hand, just switching the carpal to carpal to tarsal. So within your intertarsal joints, you can perform the action of inversion on that foot, or eversion. So inversion just would be turning your foot inward like this, and eversion would be turning it out like that. So those are the joints of the body. I've kind of jumped all over this guy. I haven't really stayed in one spot and worked my way down. I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but we also have suture joints, just throwing that in there. So these are the joints, and I don't know how accurate these are, but they are on the skull. That's what connects different parts of your skull. Many, many joints of the body. So yeah, that's what I got. Oh, hopefully that worked. Thanks for watching, and peace out.